Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're going to introduce the book of Galatians today. We started to do that last time, and then we talked about the Judaizers and who they were, and how Paul had to deal with them his entire career. In fact, his entire career, because he gets arrested in Jerusalem in Acts 21, trying to satisfy them. Anyway, but let's talk about the letter to the Galatians. We talked last time about why he felt so strongly about this, and what because he understands what is at stake. Because he came from a background of being literally rabid in his desire to enforce the law of Moses, and then on the Damascus Road, Jesus said, "Why are you doing this?" And he completely gave everything up, which he writes about at length multiple times here in Galatians and Philippians, in First Timothy, in Corinthians, Second Corinthians. He tells us over and over again, listen, I was the worst persecutor of the church. I was a guy on the rise in rabbinic Judaism, and I that was just garbage, and I treated it like garbage so that I could know Jesus. Um, and so he's had to make this choice. And these Judaizers come in behind him. And these people that he's converted, they're trying to impose the law of Moses on them again. And that's the subject of this book. It's early. We've talked about the reasons we know it's early. There's a lot of historical reference and background about Paul's own life, autobiographical material, almost 2 chapters of it in the book of Galatians that we don't have elsewhere, that fits clearly within the framework of the book of Acts, but details that we don't have anywhere else. Eye-opening. We get to know him in 3 dimensions here in the early chapters. We also have so much of the Old Testament. It reads a lot like the book of Hebrews in the way he uses the Old Testament to refute the Judaizers and to demonstrate himself a better rabbi. You think you can out-rabbi me? Well, you're wrong. It's almost like Paul is saying, you don't know who you're dealing with. I sat at the feet of Gamaliel, and I can use these same ways, these same tools that I learned then to share the gospel with you now. That's another feature of the book that makes studying this book so exciting. But the other thing that I want to mention is just his tone of voice is not the same as it is in any other book. He is so wound up. He is so upset at what is happening. I just want to give you 2 examples of this. We mentioned one already. We know that in all of Paul's other letters, but we know that there's a form. He starts out 2 or 3 verses. We have 5 here. 2 or 3 verses where he says hello. And he says, I'm Paul, and I'm an apostle of Jesus Christ, and I'm writing to you. But in those 5 verses, there's so much information. He's introducing all of his themes. Well, he does this here too. And we're going to look at verses 1 through 5 the next time. But then he follows it up with a section that says, I give thanks to God when I pray for you, and I'm praying for you every day, and I'm proud of you because of this, and this. And everybody knows this good thing about you and that good thing about you. And then he talks about that. And then he usually goes straight from that. Sometimes he'll mention, like he does in Corinthians, some of the issues he's heard about, but he goes directly into the theological truth that will underpin the point he's going to make. And so we'll get some Christology, soteriology, the book of Romans. The Jews have sinned, the Gentiles have sinned, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And we know the dynamics of this. There's the first Adam through whom sin came into the world, and then the second Adam, that's Jesus. And here's the thing. If you're baptized into Christ, you're baptized into his death, burial, and resurrection, and raised to walk in newness of life. And he talks about all that before he gets to the actual topic. That's not what he does here. What he does here is he leaves out the I'm so proud of you section altogether. And after he says hello, he says this. I am amazed, appalled, that you are so quickly deserting him who called you by the grace of Christ for a different gospel. He says in chapter 3, verse 1, when he finishes, this autobiographical section, he says, "You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you, before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified." I mean, where else does he engage? I mean, even in Corinthians, a congregation that is an absolute train wreck, he doesn't take this tone, but he does here, and so that is a difference as well. And the language gets more extreme even than that. That's why I think the two books in which we get to know Paul the best, I guess you could say First Thessalonians and Philippians as well, because he loves those folks, and they're both love letters. But to me, the two where we get to know Paul in 3D more than any place else, here when he's very young, the first letter that he wrote, and in Second Timothy when he's very old, the last letter that he wrote. I think we really get to see a side of him in both those letters that doesn't really come out anywhere else. There's just raw emotion driving the rhetoric, not the other way around. And we have that in Galatians. So I hope this is going to be an exciting study for you. I know it is going to be for me. It's just a unique book, and Paul, who is a genius at persuasion, a genius at logic, a genius as a wordsmith, is wound up, and we're getting Paul full throttle in the book of Galatians. So anyway, we'll pick up with the introduction, the hello, next time. The very calm 35 seconds before the storm starts. Next time we're together, we'll look at chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.